Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am, of course, your host, DBJ, and we are here. Uh, we're going to go over a recent Kickstarter released by ENWorld. Full disclosure: I am a contributing writer and consultant for this project. Very small part, maybe more of an interference than a contributor. But I will say that this project has been this massive project started with some brilliant writers and creators and developers out there. And in support of the Kickstarter, I thought I would do a bit of an editorial video. I'm doing this on my own. No one has asked me to do this, but I thought I would do a an analysis and maybe some continuing videos analyzing this new Kickstarter, this great Kickstarter that I'm a part of. And I hope you guys enjoy this video and gain some knowledge from it. So let's begin. All right. Um, this is the homepage for the Kickstarter for Level Advanced 5th Edition Level Up 5e from ENWorld. Yes, this is a completely rewritten from the ground up of your favorite role playing game, fifth edition version thereof. Right now, it is currently at, oh, it's just going up. 26 days to go. This is the 10th of October, and it's in American dollars, it's $377,000. It's already been funded. Now, this is an overview, so I'm going to play the intro video and I'm going to pause it. So suggest to you guys that if you look down below the video, there's all the links to the Kickstarter. There's a link to the official Level Up 5e page, levelup5e.com. And there's also a link to ENWorld. Please check that out as you will. But I know some people are busy. Maybe some people just hear things through hearsay. And maybe some others would like to hear things. I know there's some podcasts out there. Especially go find the podcast, go over to ENWorld and listen to the actual project managers and writers of this huge, expansive Kickstarter. But this is just my 2 cents on the project, and I hope you gain a lot of information about it. And I'm here to try to give a little bit of a context, if you will, for this project. Let's get this video started, shall we? Hope you can hear it.
Level up. Advanced 5e.
Are you ready to level up your 5th edition game? Level Up Advanced 5th Edition adds depth and diversity to the game you love, featuring new rules, inspiration, and advice on character creation and origins. Customize your 5th edition character like never before. Combine a heritage with a culture to create your origin.
I'm going to stop the video right there. Of course, as I mentioned before, you can get a YouTube and go directly to the Kickstarter page for this intro video about this project. But I wanted to stop it right there. As everyone should know by now, that the old style of race within 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons has been broken apart. Now, the idea here is you're going to have a heritage and a culture. Your heritage is your genetics, your blood, your how you were born, your physicality. Are you tall and lithe like an elf? Do you have horns like a tiefling? Are you dragonborn, whatnot? Dwarf, elven, gnomish, halfling, and then you have a culture. Are you from the north or the south and whatnot? Now, there is some controversy about this idea of breaking it apart, but I really don't see a problem with it. For those who prefer the OSR or more traditional racial types, very easily just pick the appropriate heritage you want to see in the world that you're developing and restrict backgrounds or sorry, not backgrounds, but restrict the cultures that you feel belong to it. But in this case, for example, let's say there are people from the far north and there are people from the south. The cultures that you decide, all of them, part of them, cultivating for your world, can be from that region. So if people from, let's say, the Arctic North have a particular culture, all heritages, all people of all genetic types would have a similar uh, background, maybe a general language that many people speak, behaviors, and things of that nature. So I really like that idea of splitting it to apart. As an old grognard of sorts, playing since the late '70s. I can tell you that this was pretty early in the development. Like, why do all elves have the same training, or why do all dwarves speak the same language? Well, this in this way, you can have humans and gnomes and halflings all come from the same region, same culture, but genetically are different. Let's continue.
Choose your background and your destiny.
Choose your background and destiny. Now we know backgrounds in fifth edition. Background, kind of like where you started, what were your humble beginnings before you became this great hero. But we also have destinies, and destiny again is an overlay over the traditional fifth edition. Remember, this Kickstarter is absolutely positively backwards compatible with all of your fifth edition material. I understand that Wizards of the Coast, WotC, is coming out with their own backwards compatible rendition of their own game system, I believe, in 2024, which um, that being said, if they are going to be backwards compatible with their own material, and then this project is compatible with all fifth edition material, then it'd be no problem. As a matter of fact, I would say this is probably the genesis of the future version of what will become the OSR. Much like OSR players can pick up nearly any other OSR product and use it for their rules, whether it's Lamentations of the Flame Princess or Swords and Sorcery or Old School Essentials, and the list goes on. Many of them have a unifying uh, uh, a unifying trunk from the branches of the tree, and this would be the exact same way. As a matter of fact, this entire project is absolutely positively fifth edition backwards compatible. Um, Now, Destiny. Let's get into Destiny. Destiny is an an ability for us to use that maybe somewhat forgotten inspiration mechanic on many tables. Other than using it to essentially roll another d20 and picking the highest roll, what else can we use inspiration for? Now, they do hint in fifth edition, traditional fifth edition, that there are other methods for it, but they don't go into much depth. In this manner, Destiny adds another layer to character creation. Maybe your destiny is to atone for your sins, or defeat a great evil, or travel the world, or uncover hidden knowledge, or any number of these things. And now you have a method of getting a mechanical benefit for using that inspiration as long as it leads towards your destiny. Now, within the rules of the game, your destiny could be hard written. I am out to destroy all evil in the world. Or maybe during character progression, you change your destiny. Maybe by fourth level, you defeat the person that destroyed your village. But now what? Maybe your new destiny is to protect the new friends you've made along the way, or become a great leader of a great nation, or atone for maybe the sins you've caused along your path to destroy the evil individuals or faction or whatnot that destroyed your home. So it's a new destiny mechanic, and I hope people really enjoy that overlay.
Adventuring classes. Select your adventuring class and make meaningful choices at every character level. With a fully revised Ranger and the new Martial class, along with a full overhaul of all the classes you know and love, you'll find added depth and choice for new features, combat maneuvers, and exploration knacks.
All right, let's go back just a little bit. A meaningful choice at every level. Now, some have made the comparison, of course, without being able to see a lot of the material, and hopefully I'll be able to do some other overviews by showing you examples of the materials that are going to be available in 1300 to 1500 page project here. But meaningful choice does not necessarily mean what some are saying is Pathfinder. This is not more complexity, but it is more diversity and choice. So traditionally in 5th edition, when you pick a character class, in many ways, it is a narrow focus. It is the trunk of a tree with very few branches. And all that has happened now is the ability to have more choices at each character level so that there becomes a greater diversity amongst similar character classes, but also the at particular times to pick or exchange different capabilities and knowledges that your character may have. For example, Tarzan, who leaves the deep jungle to go back to, I was going to say Castle Grayskull, Greystone or Greystoke or whatever, and goes back home. Maybe Tarzan loses some of his well earned and learned jungle techniques to become this upright, noble European citizen. And so that might be the transition. And then as Tarzan gains new abilities, I don't know, I'm using Tarzan as an example, goes back to the jungle, you know, removes those civilized trappings and goes back to his homeland. And the same can be done for a character. Maybe a barbaric character begins learning things, it becomes more civilized along the path of a barbarian trait, and then maybe goes more bestial. Or a rogue who is a spy starts learning other skills, and so these meaningful choices go along. Now, it's not to say that each character class skips to another character class, but it does mean that even fighters and rogues and wizards who seemingly seem to go down the same path do have very many choices far beyond just ability score increases. Um, Talking about combat maneuvers, very often in our intellectual properties that we love, they seem to have a disconnect sometimes with our fantastical role playing. For example, a lot of our favorite fantasy stories involve essentially combatants. Most of them, I suppose, if you have to put a label on it, fighters, paladins, barbarians, rogues. Many of them are martial classed, not necessarily having magic. But 5th edition has incorporated magic into every single character class, even those that we think probably, or at least thematically, wouldn't have those, like barbarians and rangers, yet they have magical capabilities. Well, instead, in this level up 5e, we have a fully developed martial technique component in parity to spell casting for wizards. And these are all martial techniques. Some of those martial techniques at the highest levels do start to bump up against or reflect a little bit of arcane ability. But in many ways, you can run a completely air quotes non-magical game with all martial classes just using the martial capabilities within 5th edition. Essentially what it works out to be is that these martial maneuvers are divided into schools. They're thematic schools, whether you are slick and fast, maybe you're extremely perceptive or extremely strong and use your musculature and your stamina to defeat your enemies, or maybe you're an expert with two dueling weapons, or archery or throwing weapons and things of that nature. And so there are over 100 combat maneuvers, and they are acquired through many of the martial classes at various levels. Of course, fighters being the most martial class having being the best at them, but of course, rangers, paladins, so on and so forth. They also have access to these martial maneuvers. They are paid for through exertion. So now we've in level up 5e have organized all of these martial maneuvers and the ability to use them into using exertion, including what used to be the monk class, which is now the adept. And the adept, of course, has the ability to use, well, martial maneuvers and expend exertion. And exertion points are double your proficiency, and you're able to, as you use more lethal or more dexterous or more intellectual or instinctual combat maneuvers, they cost more. They have different kinds of, and you can mix and match them, as well as some martial maneuvers stacking onto other martial maneuvers to be able to extend their range or duration or damage potential and such. And so, much like spell casting, this is in parity as well. 8 plus modifier plus proficiency. It goes on, and it is the same thing. I'm really proud of that. I had nothing to do with it. Again, I was an extremely small part of a grand project, so just follow along with that. Here we go. Let's continue.
Equipment. A vast array of weapons, armour, and adventuring gear awaits you. More to choose from with new properties and materials. Select special cultural weapons, helms, and shields. Customize your gear. Add traits to your mount. Build a stronghold and recruit followers.
All right. Equipment. Now this deals with a bigger issue that 5th edition has inadvertently bumped up against, and within the role-playing community, this is a reflection back to the olden days. I'm an old grognard, like I said before, to the olden days of collecting a lot of loot and then not having anything to spend it on. Again, Level Up 5e is about adding more depth, not complexity. So in this case, we have weapons that have reach or finesse or require 2 hands. In this case, we have weapons that have even more properties to them and allow us to engage with martial combat with other mechanisms. Maybe we're able to trip or trap or restrain our enemies with some of these weapons, as well as many other techniques. Also, weapons and armor, shields. We even have helmets now and other shields and more varied shields with other properties, and we're able to add properties for good and bad to those items. Maybe you want to run a game in a Bronze Age. Now we have bronze and woven items and steel, silvered items, arcane materials, mithril and adamantine, and now those tags, those descriptors can be added to your equipment. And there are some negative traits as well, whether traits are worn or broken. And this involves, like, what is the spell? Mending, that exists in a world where things don't break. Now we have a world where things break, they get worn out. And if you are someone who's very much into scarcity of materials, now players can, when they have their chainmail shirt, they can invest in a higher grade shirt. Maybe instead of that plate mail, now plate mail has traits like broken or damaged or comfortable or lightweight and so on and so forth. And I think everyone's going to really enjoy this addition to equipment and weaponry and enhancing them. Maybe you have maybe your thieves you find or are able to purchase a set of thieves tools that are better, or a healing kit, or a poisoner's kit that has greater materials within them, a higher quality item, or maybe even get them from a specialized individual you've been searching for as a reward for adventuring. Uh, Strongholds and followers. Yes, we do have literally a third party creation by a great creator that's called Strongholds and Followers, but within this 5th Level Up 5e edition Kickstarter, there is a built-in ingrained Strongholds and Followers mechanism in which you have a place to spend some of that money, upkeep, recruit allies and followers, and maybe even get benefits to your character for having such a place. Essentially, back in the olden days, between, what is it, like 8th to 11th level, characters would semi-retire out of the game, and then their followers would become the new characters, a legacy character that would continue adventuring. And in many ways, when you reached name level, back in the day, there was something called a named level. For you youngins out there, this kind of represents that, where you become a wizard or a fighter, and you set down your banner and decide to protect the kingdom or dominate it, as you will. Let's continue on.
Feats and multi-classing. Gain extra abilities with feats and choose from special feats available only to multi-classed characters, including the Deadly Blade Chanter, the Eldritch Archer, the Shadowy Night Stalker, and more.
This is a shout out to those who remember prestige classes. This was at a time, and actually, prestige classes goes even further back to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, where to become a bard, yes, to become a bard, you had to have certain levels in other classes to become a bard. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I believe it was at the time Thief, Druid, and maybe Ranger was mixed in there somewhere. Well, now we have feats that are synergistically available to characters that multi-class. And again, like I said, this is a shout out to the prestige classes, and I think people are going to get a kick out of using the ones that are available and even making their own by using them as examples. Like maybe there is a feat you're looking for that is a combination of becoming like an arcane knight mixing fighter and wizard, or maybe there's something that mixes a ranger and paladin or whatnot. And so those feats, which ones are available, I can't really tell you which ones are available, but I think everyone's going to have some fun with that and kind of get a little like little nod and wink, like, oh, I remember prestige classes, and this is a manner in which to do it. Again, not necessarily more complex, but just adding more depth to what's available in the game.
Ability scores. Make your character work for you, accomplishing tasks with ability scores and skills.
This is something. This is a slight nod, but for those who are aware, 5th edition does not have a critical success crit fumble for every single die roll of the D20. And many tables, though, recognize that rolling a natural 1 and rolling a natural 20 means something. And in ability checks and skill checks, that actually doesn't exist in the current state of 5th edition. In Level Up 5e, this Level Up 5e and this Kickstarter from ENWorld, crits on either range, from crit failures to critical successes, now run the gamut of nearly every die roll. And I think there's something special in that. I believe, like, if you're trying to persuade a guard to allow you to enter into the city, that maybe there's something special that comes about. Maybe that guard remembers you and gives you some greater information a few days later. Or you're trying to pick a lock on a door and you fail. Maybe your lockpick tool breaks in the lock and now you can't get it out, or a piece of equipment drops out of your belt and rolls under the door, or something of that nature. We all know combat crits and fails, right? A weapon gets dropped, a weapon is thrown away, a weapon gets jammed into a monster and it flings your bladed weapon aside, or something of that nature. Maybe in a critical hit, we know there's more damage that is done, but maybe there's some other critical successes and or failures that happen. And not to embarrass a player's actions, a pet peeve of mine is I try to sneak up on the monster and roll a 1 and someone goes like, oh, you caress their backs, gently. No, I think that's a little bit comedic and ridiculous and a little bit embarrassing. Instead, these describe very much in-world, given verisimilitude, both critically succeeding and or failing on a test. And some of these might have slightly longer range effects than would normally be available. Like going back to the example of using a charisma check, maybe someone else overhears your conversation and sells that information to a rival, or that person is like convinced of what you had to say, even though you were never even speaking directly to them, and they arrive out of the shadows to help you out. So I really like that. So let's go on with the video again.
Full rules for group checks and skill specialities, new skills like culture and engineering, and special ability check critical success and failure. Adjudicating the action has never been easier.
Another modifier to skills, as you've heard in this video, are two additional skills as well as skill specialization. And this is something that has always been on the periphery of fifth edition, and th- because of the fifth edition style, they want to keep everything very simple. It's very nice to bring in new players because the hobby is growing so vast with brand new people coming in all the time. You want to keep things very simple. With this level up or advanced fifth edition project, there are now skill specialties. So, for example, maybe the rogue is feeling a little bit having their niche stepped on because the wizard has a very high dexterity as well, and so seems to have as high a stealth skill. Well, instead, now characters can pick specializations so that maybe with athletics, maybe athletics deals with running, jumping, swimming, climbing. So maybe an aquatic character has a specialization in swimming when maybe the rogue with breaking and entering has a specialization with maybe roof running for jumping or maybe climbing for that dwarf in living in the mountains or something. So skill specialization is something new, another way to tweak a character to make them different, especially if they seem similar. For example, two rangers even within the same mode can now start to get even further differentiation. So you can have character concepts where everyone plays, say, paladins or warlocks or something, and now even with similar skills, maybe a city of thieves where everyone has stealth and deception and sleight of hand and athletics and acrobatics. Now you can even start to differentiate those skills amongst the characters. Maybe someone's very good at deceiving the constabulary, while someone else is very good at deceiving a criminal faction. So let's continue on.
Adventuring. A deep dive into the three pillars of play with information about movement, the environment, and objects. Enjoy an array of downtime activities. Craft weapons and armour. Research new spells, gather information, or even engage in some hard work.
You heard that right. There's crafting in the game. Enough said. I know some of you are thinking, wait, crafting? You mean like magic item crafting? Mundane and arcane. Yeah, crafting. Fully developed.
Gain fame or infamy as your prestige rating increases.
Fifth edition does have an optional rule for honor and a reputation, and this is no exception to that. With having a prestige rating, especially when creating a stronghold, and this is another mechanism, another vector by which a game master, a dungeon master, a narrator, with as regards to a level up 5e, can challenge the players. Maybe the players are engaged in activities that the local community doesn't really appreciate them, even, and so they might be at odds when their their prestige rating starts to go far more into infamy. Even if the players are trying to do something for good, their actions may be looked at as being nefarious. And this is another way for the players' actions to affect the world. And there's nothing better than having fuel for creativity for a narrator, for a game master. And of course, when the narrator is able to go, oh, remember 3 sessions ago when you destroyed the Medusa and her followers? Well, there was someone else allied to them, and your actions also harmed quite a bit of the background with all those explosive spells and blasts from the sky. You might have to answer for that. I like those ideas. So let's get back to the intro video, and we're getting into combat.
Combat. Enjoy all new tactical combat actions, which enhance and streamline battle. With different types of initiative check, full rules for mounted combat and basic combat maneuvers, new ways to handle ongoing damage and battle fatigue, and exciting world actions where the very environment plays a part in the turn orders.
This You guys know I'm the self-appointed third pillars of the RPG community. I haven't had anybody challenge my my dominance yet. But in all seriousness, I am an absolute fan of the third pillar of exploration. Of course, we have social interaction and combat as the other two pillars, but there's something about using the environment, location, location, location. I absolutely love it. And in the combat section, of course, we have ourselves far more generalized actions that every player can take, every character can take in a game, and even your adversaries, your NPCs as well. And everything from disarming to tripping and falling, causing your opponent to trip and fall and knock them over. Also, disarming and sundering and many other things in combat that every character can do. Now, will they be good at it? That's based on the character skill level, but this is available to everyone. And I like that idea. And I think many people at the table have always said, well, wait a minute, I'm a wizard. Can I use my staff to make, you know, make that undead monster trip and fall or something? Yes, absolutely. So is absolutely ingrained in fifth edition. We have the rules set up, and um, as stated in the Kickstarter page, maybe you're just looking for modularity. You're looking for, you know what, I want to have more combat maneuvers available to everyone at the table. Maybe I just want to use that part. It's fully developed, fully play tested and by survey, and I think you're going to like it. But the one thing, the environment, there's something special. It's one thing to punch a bad guy in the throat. It's another thing to do it when you have a memorable location. Maybe you're having a battle during a blizzard and the Yetis you're fighting are disappearing into the high winds and falling snow. Just out of range, you can barely see the ends of your fingertips with your outreached weapon. Or maybe you're fighting on a muddy hill or a dense jungle or on the side of a cliff or in the shadow of a volcano spewing lava and smoke and acid, or you're fighting in the netherworld in a hellscape, or there's high winds. You're on the deck of a storm-tossed ship. There's floodwaters coming in, and you're fighting a monster as the water starts to rise past your ankles to your knees to your thighs, and the leeches or manta rays or crocodiles swing around the swampy area are coming around you. There's something about the environment that just adds this third element, this triangle of conflict that I absolutely love, and I'm so glad they were able to implement it, and I'm glad I was able to be kind of my part to be a part of it and to really say, you know, this really needs to be here, if for no other reason than to change the dynamics on encounters, and that not just I draw my sword and hit it, and it draws its claw and tries to bite me, right? So I really love that. Let's go on.
Your combats will never be the same again.
No, they won't.
Exploration. The journey is often as important as the destination, and exploring the world has never been more immersive with a fully-fledged exploration pillar. Level Up's new journey rules are easy to understand and add colour and atmosphere to travel. Overcome exploration challenges to discover hidden boons and brave deadly monsters and dramatic social encounters.
You know I've got to pause on this one. I absolutely love this part of Level Up 5e. This I'm going to hold these books to me so dearly, and the reason why is because often it seems as if recently, during the rise and fall of various trends within the tabletop role playing community, that some things fall into atrophy. And one of those things that has fallen into atrophy is exploration itself, traveling from one place to another. And there is a growing false dichotomy that the travel is not really as important as getting to the where the action is. Everybody wants to get to the front door. And though we are traveling through desolate locations in dangerous territory, it never really seems that way, because the characters travel, they arrive, and they are none the worse for the wear. Nothing other than descriptions, nothing has really happened. In this case, we have really created a fully realized third pillar of exploration to be used within the tabletop role playing experience. Yes, specific regions actually have experience point value to them. Not only do they have experience point value, but we have boons and discoveries. There's a real reason to go exploring. There's a reason why you should take the longer path. Maybe a particular region is very difficult to navigate through, or maybe, just maybe, with these boons and discoveries, players actually gain not just experience, but items, magic items, even equipment, knowledge of a region. They might discover some kind of boon. They might find a magical fountain or an old crypt where they are given a blessing. There also might be some downsides to that too, uncovering some undead that were long buried or whatnot. But the exploration part of this becomes a story unto itself when the players want to travel overseas or overland or through the accursed desert or through a mountain pass. There's a story to be told through um, that journey. And like designing a 5-room dungeon, travel itself can be the dungeon, it can be the adventure. And as they move from region to region and experience something, it can be exactly like describing going from one room in a dungeon to the next dungeon. It's just the environment that happens. It's a description of what's around the players that changes. Maybe the distances are different and the locations might be different. For example, traveling through a swamp is completely different than traveling through underworld caves. But is it really? It's just more adventure and more storytelling. The other part of the increasing the exploration pillar, having exploration, having actual experience point values, they are also organized by tier levels, and many of these regions have variable tier levels. So first level characters might only go through a dark wood, but tier 4 characters might go through a living, a vast living ocean of plants where even the ground can't be seen, that the foliage is so thick, and giant sized city trees that move and are alive or something. And the same could be said for many other things. Maybe first level characters shouldn't be walking through a hellscape, but tier 3 and 4 characters might go there to hunt down a pit fiend and their evil entourage or something of that nature. And the environment itself, separating lair from monster, maybe animals and beasts and dangerous things that live in these regions benefit from living there because hot geysers of acid spew up from the ground, because every demonic and fiendish creature that lives in this region is used to it, but not, of course, the PCs as visitors. The last thing I will say when it comes to exploration is I love this idea that is included is the idea of each character and every character class has a an exploration knack they're able to use when exploring the environment. Every single character class now, along with martial abilities, spell capabilities, increasing skill levels, and other capabilities, now have exploration knacks that um, hopefully will help the adventuring party travel from one place to another in one manner or another. Of course, many of us are thinking of like rangers and druids being the most environmentally aware, but there are other knacks that the other player character classes have that allow them to survive out in the world. As well as having knacks, there are also functions, a duty, something that you can do to help the adventuring party. So when the characters go out and explore the environment, maybe someone is a cartographer and they want to start mapping. Maybe someone's a journalist and they want to write down all the stories. Maybe someone else wants to wants to befriend travelers on the road and exchange gossip or tell stories. Maybe another player wants to rob them at a knife point, or wants to pretend to befriend them and sneak around and pickpocket them. Maybe a player wants to go hunting or scouting or building a camp, and so on and so forth. And there's plenty of these travel assignments that the players can take that will, again, lead them to boons and discoveries that will enhance the gameplay. And players now may really want to explore to increase their, you know, viable chances of surviving at the end because they found some trinket or befriended um, some humanoids on their way, and so on and so forth. And of course, the boons and discoveries are ranked through tiers, just as the tiers of play in the gaming. So, tier 4 characters may not find it very interesting to find tier 1 boons of discoveries because we now have specified tier 4 boons of discoveries for those who may be traveling different planes or to different dimensions or even planetary places or going, into flying castles or deep into the underground and so on. Anyway, I can go on and on about this. I'm sorry. Let's finish up this literally 5 minute 30-second video.
Combat maneuvers. Martial characters need no longer envy their spell casting companions, with a wide choice of non-magical combat maneuvers from a dozen different traditions. With over 100 combat maneuvers to choose from, no two fighters will ever be the same. Spell casting. Cast all your old favourite spells and dozens more, from the lowly magic missile to the mighty wish, and brand new spells like Searing Equation, Wormway, or Inescapable Malady, which will bring fresh new choices to your game table.
Something not mentioned here as well when it comes to spell casting is we now have a greater categorization of arcane abilities. We are used to the 8 classic schools of magic, but maybe within your setting or maybe within your own head canon, those 8 schools either don't fit or are not enough to categorize the spells that you have within your world. For example, we do have the school of, say, necromancy, we have the school of illusion, school of conjuration, but what about categorizing pyromantic spells, thermal spells? What about spells of the hearth, spells of war, spells of mind alteration, not just enchantment, but mind alteration? Maybe there are spells of wind and water or spells of the beast. And so now every single spell has a tag, a categorization so that they fall within a particular range. And this can be used for example, a the narrator wants to create a pyromancer. Now you have the ability to look up all the fire spells and just say, well, this character, this monster has the capability to cast all the pyromantic spells, and here they are. Or you're trying to create a character of a martial bent, and you're trying to decipher, well, which spells are more war related, battle related. I don't remember which one. Okay, well, now we have a way to tag them. And because of how successful the Kickstarter is, I can't promise, but I have a pretty good um, ability to tell you that there will be digital tools to be able to pick the spells that fall under the category you want, to not only be able to pick them but very easily navigate through them. And I'm really happy about that. The second part of spell casting is that we've added in a rarity named spell addition to many of the spells that are already in existence. For example, Fireball is just not a normal Fireball. There are named versions of the Fireball, variations of the Fireball. Maybe that Fireball no longer uses fire. Maybe it uses necrotic energy or psychic energy or something. And those are variations of the spell. So not only do you have your full 5th edition list of spells, they are now modified. They are rarefied as a special gift to arcane players that might find these rarefied spells or find a mentor to teach them. They're also, this means that when players come up against enemies using those same spells, they might not quite know which version of the spell they're going up against. And that, I think, is another great world building tool for a narrator, where it's like, hey, 2 characters have fireball, or do they? Hmm. So I love it. I love it as gifts. I love it as storytelling mechanisms. If a player goes to a new land, maybe they've never heard of Fireball, but they all have a necrotic explosion. I don't know what you would name it off the top of my head, but yeah, I really love that part of spell casting, and it makes it new and interesting, and leaves space for discovery and surprise and mystery. And I really appreciate that.
Game mastery. All the best advice and tools to run your game. Learn how to create a campaign or build a world. Read about player archetypes and how best to excite them. Use robust tools to design and balance encounters with all new math. Roll on detailed random treasure tables. Use devious diseases and poisons, and adjudicate debilitating mental stress effects.
I'm going to stop right here to talk about two long lasting effects that are unique to Level Up 5e that really change the dynamic of the game and reflects back on what we've already gone over. And that is the idea of fatigue and strife. In the game, we do have two new conditions: fatigue and strife. Fatigue affecting you physically, strength, dexterity, constitution, and strife affecting intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and other aspects. Some of course, fatigue for physical and strife for mental. And this mechanism is used because when we talked about exploration and we talk about going to desolate locations, sometimes a lifeless, desolate location isn't just a flat plain that a character can just walk across. Maybe it's so lonely and devoid of life that it causes mental stress, strife, even grand battles that where there's been battles for generations on end. It can cause some, in the old days, used to be called shell shock, battle fatigue, and so on. And there are monsters that even when you fight them, just being around them causes strife and mental exhaustion when traveling, when doing combat, and other things. And I really like this. This kind of replaces or isn't maybe a different overlay than using insanity as a mechanism. And it also makes more sense because all of us at some level are on the spectrum of mental acuity at various levels in our life, whether we have lack of sleep, stress from work, stress from physical exhaustion, causing mental exhaustion, and dealing with people, trying to keep a smile on your face around people that you may not like. And those can cause strife to us too. And so we do have a game mechanic that represents that. Also, with creating monster encounters, not only is have we refined the ability to calculate those encounters, but we have a mechanism to go, hey, I have a book of monsters, but how many monsters are there? Are there monsters that are leaders and more powerful, less powerful? Are there children? What kind of treasure do they have? What When I'm walking along in the woods and I decide to use a random table, do I just turn a left corner and see them standing there, or is there evidence of their presence? And I can predict what's going to happen and then make uh, dynamic choices to encounter, sneak around, or confront those monsters. And so those are available as well. Let's continue on. I know you guys are waiting for me to stop.
All the magical items you already know, plus over 200 more, each lovingly detailed. Every magic item has a price and crafting components, so you can craft your own. Plus, rules for the sentient items and artifacts like...
Yeah, you heard that right. Magical crafting items and actual prices for items. So you have a starting point. Um, this is an editorial video, so as a personal thing, I don't really like magic shops. I feel like it's a little bit too commercialized for my personal taste. But for those who do want those, or at least want to have a value attached to them, a general gold piece value, we now have their value listed along with their rarity, what it takes to make them, and crafting rules, all in fifth edition. Again, modularity, or maybe you just want to use only level up 5e. Because if you support this Kickstarter and you at the minimum get the 3 books along with the other assets that are available, you do not need to use an additional 3 books from traditional Wizards of the Coast 5th edition. You can just use these books or interchange them as you wish.
The Sword of Three Traditions, the Cerberus War Engine, and the Raiment of the Devouring King. Level Up Advanced 5th Edition is a complete overhaul of your favourite game, fully compatible with the books you already have.
Level Up Advanced 5E.
Awesome sauce. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for just being here, allowing me to share this my opinion, my view of this Kickstarter. As a matter of fact, let me go back to allow me to go back to the opening page and see if there's been any changes to the value. It's going up a bit. It was 377,000 in US, $378,000 now. It's 26 days to go. As this airs, I really love it. Guys, thank you so much. By the way, hopefully I'll be able to do some further reviews, give you just a shorter video, of course, insight into some further bits of the Kickstarter. But please go over to Kickstarter page. Right now, I'm paging down to many of the elements here. There's lots of places you can go, links to check out even more information about the Kickstarter. But yeah, thank you very much for even listening to me. And but as you can see, there's plenty of material here to go over. 13 to 1,500 pages of material, leatherite bound books. And even here, let's go to this right here. DBJ is here, Devabrian Jackson. My name's right here, as well as many of these other individuals who are far smarter and intelligent and brilliant, and did far more contribution to the refinement of this game, even as we speak. Although it's actually just written. It's now in layout. It's going through many passes through editing, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. So thank you so much for being a part of my show and checking this out. Hopefully, we'll have many others available, and hopefully, this will be so successful that the future of this game, the support of it, the stretch goals will get bigger and better, and so on. You'll be able to invest in this game. There's even an OGL attached to this that extends off of the OGL of the 5th edition version, as well as the fact that fingers crossed. I'm just going to be so happy with the SRD version of this comes out, the digital tools and everything like that. So please, guys, please be aware. Check out everything about this. So thank you so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. It's I can't I can't thank you enough for just being part of this. This is an hour long for a little 5-minute, 30-second video. Again, thank you so much for being part of the show. I appreciate it. I'm DBJ. Thank you for being part of RPG with DBJ, and have a great day. Oh, by the way, go down below the video. Check out the Kickstarter. Go over to ENWorld. Go to Level Up 5e. You'll find out all the information there. Please go do it. You won't regret it. Thanks, guys.